And I will focus on two important issues for the coming president in a couple of hours. Maurizio, what can you say, also considering what we had behind for many months together working, what would you say about the education future of our society in the coming 2 years, but maybe even longer than that, those 2 years?
Well, hi, Joseph. Hi, everyone. Yes, we've done a lot of work actually to see what was important, and we tried to deliver what was important in terms of education and training. First of all, Joseph, I think it's fair to say and to remember everyone that we are a multidisciplinary society. We value the diversity of our society very much. And so when we talk about training, it's not just doctors, but it's also nurses, physiotherapists, allied healthcare professionals. In terms of the activities that we did over the last years, has been a lot focused on training in intensive care. Because as you know, the free movement of ICU professionals in Europe is actually a problem. We have a lot of intensivists in Europe, starting from very different backgrounds. I'm an anesthesiologist. I think you're also an anesthesiologist as a background. And I am trained in anesthesia and in intensive care. But if I go at European level, my qualification is only recognized as anesthesia officially. So I think we have a little bit of work to do there, in the sense that it's very important that we get the recognition, I think, that we need, and that our professionals are allowed to move freely between country and country. And in this sense, we've been talking a lot with a lot of colleagues from around Europe. It seems that the common denominator for everyone is, first of all, that everyone agrees that we need to have competencies to become an intensivist, and probably that a fair amount of time to gain these competencies, if you have, another specialty, is probably roughly 2 years. 2 years that you can get either within that specialty, across that specialty, on top of the specialty. We really don't, frankly, I don't really care. What I care is that people are trained, are competent, and they spend an adequate amount of time to get these competencies. But I know that I discussed this a lot with you over the last few months and weeks, so it would be interesting to know your view on this as well.
Well, I think it's very important indeed. We have been talking almost daily on these things the last 2 years. It is very important to indicate that the multidisciplinary character of the intensive care is very important in Europe, because we have seen many times that whatever your basic specialization is, of course, a little bit related to our profession, with adequate training to develop your competencies, you can become an excellent intensivist. This was an evolution. The intensive care is an evolution for 70 years now, and the competencies have changed so enormously. While it has started as a mechanical ventilation and keeping the circulation well and controlling the infection, the intensivists are now doing many other treatments like echocardiographies or dialysis of the patient with CVVH, etc. So I think competencies are much more important than where you are coming from. And that also, I think, defines the multidisciplinary character and the diversity of it.
Yeah.
What do you have to add to this? Because we have the diversity part of our profession.
Yeah, I would add as well the fact that, I think, the competencies with the right curriculum, and, it seems that most training programs in anesthesia and intensive care, or in other training that go from one other specialty to intensive care, they seem to have curriculums in line with co-batteries that we have, taken and developed in the society. But I also would like to say what we were saying before. We don't have to focus just on, on doctors, because we are multidisciplinary. Also because we have a lot of our colleagues in our intensive care unit, and nurses are very important as the other allied healthcare professionals. And we want to see this diversity reflected in the society. I would actually go a little bit further in this sense that we are growing our membership in terms of nurses, and we have to make sure that we are working with our nursing colleagues to provide excellent training also for them in Europe. But we've also seen that this diversity is growing. The intensive care community is now going away the classic healthcare professional. Just look at what happens with data science. We established the data science sections, and now the 2 datathons that we did, half of the delegates were non-healthcare workers. They were data scientists or engineers. It seems that our community is growing more and more. But Joseph, if you allow me, I would like to talk a bit about diversity, not just for training and our multidisciplinary base, but also a little bit more on some of the problems that I think that we've recognized a few years ago in the society, in the sense that we didn't have a good balance in the representation of gender, age, geography, and the diversity of our society. If you looked at our conference, for instance, it moved from percentages of female speakers of something as low as 15-16% some years ago, which was clearly not acceptable, to, I believe, the latest figure for this meeting was 36%. And this has been growing throughout the years. And, my vision for ESIC is really that it needs to become a worldwide society. Our core will always be European. We will always be a European society of intensive care medicine. But if you look at our membership base now, roughly 30% comes from outside Europe. I think it's fair that we need to give more voice also to some of these people. Maybe we need to give a little bit more presence to countries with large memberships, because they are participating and taking also our guide when it comes to training and other standards. When it comes to other things that I would like to see in the society in terms of diversity, I'm not happy to see just more female speakers and more young speakers in the Congress. I would like to see more officers with more balance. We start to see more young people. Next, I think it's been a great development for the society. We are learning so much from our young colleagues. But I do think that we have to find a way to mentor, maybe to promote nominations, to see more female leaders coming to the elections. I would like really to see them thriving into officers' positions in our society.
Maurizio, very good. Thank you very much. I have one confession and one other point. That 15% female speakers is coming. I'm afraid it's coming from the time that I was the chair of the Division of Scientific Affairs. I hope that I made it better again during my presidency. So that was my confession. Coming back to our education part, considering everything which is said, let's face the situation that the evolution that I have mentioned is for 70 years, and many countries individually have been doing great work to improve the education system in their own countries. With the free movement and all the other necessary small adjustments so that intensivists can move freely in Europe, what would this mean to the individual European states? Because everybody has built up something, and people want to know what's going to happen with what they have built.
Yeah, well, I think the key value in all of this needs to be the free movement of ICU professionals. So this is being where we focus this attention in the last year, probably more than looking at what individual countries do with their training. I really don't want to go into that detail. I think every country should find what's the best way to train an intensivist. And as you say, we have excellent programs for intensive care in Europe, whatever specialty is. But at the moment, we don't have a framework for the free movement of these professionals. If I am trained in anesthesia and intensive care in Italy, I may not work in your intensive care in the Netherlands if my qualification is not recognized. So what I think matters the most now is that everyone tells us what is their way to become an intensivist in their country, and we put all this diversity into something that we want to bring forward to create this framework for the free movement of ICU professionals. So in practice, I see very little changes occurring at national level. What I see is actually bringing a little bit more structure to what we said before. When do you spend your time in training in intensive care during your training period? Which curriculum have you adopted to get the competencies? And I see the common denominator really in these 2 years that we said that you should spend within your specialty, across your specialty, on top. It doesn't really matter to us, but something that everyone agrees, that's what we do at our national level to get competencies in intensive care. So what we need now from individual associations and member states is really to give us their vision on how we can facilitate this framework for the recognition of intensivists so that people can really work across Europe more freely.
Thank you. Do you have any questions to me?
Well, the question that I would have to you is, which advice would you give me? Because you've been leading this process in the last year, and again, which message do you think maybe we should pass more clearly again to colleagues that are working in intensive care now, and where do you see would be the key actions that we should bring forward?
I think the most important situation is, especially when there are a lot of points to discuss, which can lead to changes of ideas or necessities of changing of the ideas among people. My experience is that we, at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end, we always concentrate on the patient because none of us wants to give bad care for the patients. We always want the best care for the patients. And in that sense, I think the important thing is that the ones who are on the field and doing the patient care have the right competencies. I think this is for me has been always the most important thing, rather than losing our whole concentration with the details. That's for me the core business. And for that, I think next to the competencies, you have mentioned also the structure is important, so that we know exactly which path we are following. And I would like also intensive care recognition in the future look at this. COVID-19 has given us the possibility that people know what intensive care is. That is also an important issue for me.
Yeah, I agree. And also COVID-19 has shown how important it is to have people trained with the right skills in intensive care. Indeed, when we were preparing a course for basic skills in intensive care in Europe, which many people may have seen, we made it very clear that it would be impossible to train specialists just in a few months. It takes years to do that. The only thing that we can do is to get maybe colleagues a bit more familiar with what we do in intensive care.
I think that's one of the very important issues, the message that we don't train intensivists or intensive care nurses in a course of 3 days. But we can give them the perception of what it is to be in an intensive care the moment you walk in. I don't know whether you remember when you first walked in an intensive care unit. I can remember that very well. I was a physician and it was very different atmosphere. But Maurizio, I think we are right on time, and I can maybe round it up by saying to our people who have joined us today that tomorrow, exactly on the same time, we shall be here, and we will probably have a slightly different issue tomorrow that we can discuss with each other. Thank you very much, and have a nice day, Maurizio, you, but also all the participants, all the almost 6,000 participants who are with us this week. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.